Last night, our son was praying. He said, God, thank you that we're not slaves. It's like, wow, that is some contentment right there.
Welcome to the Steward Lab Podcast with our parents, James and Amberlee Rich. Join Mom and Dad as they explore how to be good stewards with your time, money, relationships, health, careers, and even your kids, like us. It's all about growing God's kingdom. Come on, let's experiment.
Our first house that we bought was quite the fixer-upper. We bought it a year after we had been married, and it was a foreclosure.
To give you some context on kind of a fixer-upper or definitely a fixer-upper, the second time we walked in, our realtor said, I'm not going in with you guys. It smelled like there was a herd of cats that had lived there.
Yeah, it was rough, but we saw so much potential and good bones, and the goal was to live in it for about 5 years, sell it, and be able to move and have some equity in it. So that way we could move to the Treasure Valley where we live now and find a house that we really wanted to live in long term.
Yeah. So our realtor actually told us this is an investment decision. Don't get emotionally attached until you have signed the papers. And that was really helpful in this situation. That summer, Amberlee looked at, what was it, like 80 homes?
Yeah, I think he was really sick of me. When we lived in the house, we fixed it all up. We sold it. We looked for homes here in the Treasure Valley. We really wanted a home that was not as much of a fixer-upper.
We wanted it to be turnkey.
Yes, because we had been there, done that, and we really didn't want to do that again. And so we found the house that we're living in right now, and we loved it. And we're like, "Oh, we don't have to do anything.
Nothing needs to be changed. It's
just
perfect.
It was perfect." And then we started watching Fixer Upper, the TV show, and realized maybe we actually don't live in the perfect house.
Maybe it's not as perfect as we would like it to be.
Yeah, we started dreaming about what if we knock down some walls and put shiplap in some areas? And we were noticing that this amazing show that is super wholesome started giving us some
dissatisfaction.
We started looking at our house with different lenses and recognizing all the things that could be and all the ways that we would love to change it. And we weren't satisfied with this home that we originally were like, it's amazing.
Yeah, especially when you compare it to what we were in before. And I mean, when we first got that first house, the downstairs basement ceiling was caved in. There was no flooring in the bottom. It was just concrete, and it was a mess. And even with all the work that we put into it, it still didn't hold a candle to what we currently had. But we had so much more dissatisfaction and discontentment with our newer house that was beautiful and perfect when we bought it. And it didn't have anything to do with the house. It had to do with the inputs that we were putting inside of ourselves. And again, this is not to say that watching something like Fixer Upper is bad or anything like that. Whenever you're consuming anything, you always want to see, is this giving me dissatisfaction with my life? Mm-hmm. And if it is, there may be a time period that you need to go away from that, take a break from it.
We were just avid watchers of Fixer Upper, and we realized after having some conversations that this was not a healthy thing for us to watch. And so we just put the kibosh on it, and we're like, this is a great show. But for us, it's causing us so much discontentment, and it was making us want to spend money on things that we didn't really need to spend money on. And we were just being so discontent and dissatisfied with our home and looking at it almost with disgust. And so we stopped watching Fixer Upper. And then even furthermore, we just got to the point that we're like, our TV is causing us so much discontentment. So we just put our TV in a temporary timeout.
Well, I think it wasn't just that. I think we were also in a season in our life when we wanted to be more present. Mm-hmm. And we knew that the TV, we would put the kids to bed, we would sit on the couch, and we would just turn on the TV. And we would let that dictate our thoughts and our feelings for the evening. And we realized that we wanted to make some shifts, you more so than me.
That is true.
and so you did something pretty drastic.
Yeah, I really felt like the Lord was telling me that I needed to go a full year without looking at a TV. So looking at no screen, do not watch a TV show, a movie. And we went to a Super Bowl party, and that was super awkward of trying to be present at the Super Bowl party, but never actually looking at the TV screen.
But it might have been more awkward for you than everybody else.
That's true.
You
They
just
didn't
sat
know.
you sat in the worst seat possible that you couldn't even see the TV, and then you just had conversations with those around you.
Yeah, and it was such a good experience. I didn't know that I needed it as much, as I was going through that process. During that year, your mother was really sick. She ended up passing away from cancer, and I felt like the reason why God really asked me to take this step of stopping watching TV and looking at watching movies was to help me to not numb myself out and be able to actually experience the feelings of grief
Mm.
and being able to process it without distracting myself from reality. And so it was really good for me. And it also just recalibrated me because when we started watching things again, my level of tolerance to watching things shifted greatly. And I was noticing how much what I watch affects my thought life and even my dreams at night. It just kind of recalibrated me and helped me to take a step back and look at what I'm consuming from the eyes of, is this beneficial to me? How is this actually helping me, or is this furthering me from the life that I want to have?
Yeah. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about contentment. And that story that Amberlee just shared is so pivotal in the direction that our life went. And so at this moment, we don't have a TV in our house. We do have a projector that we'll set up. It was one of those things that we found this device was causing discontentment. And so we did something drastic. We put the TV in timeout. We put it in the closet and didn't watch it for the longest time. And there's so much in our life and our society today that pushes us to be discontent. I mean, that's what marketing is. Marketing is getting you to be discontent with where you are in life so that you will buy this product that's going to fix it. But as Hamilton says,
I'll never be satisfied.
never be satisfied. That's right.
Yes.
And the Rolling Stones also have something to say about this.
Yeah, I can't get no satisfaction. And, this is not a new problem. This is something that's been happening for ages. When you look at King Solomon in Ecclesiastes, I think we kind of can disassociate of recognizing like how well off really was he, because he lived a completely different time.
Yeah, he
than
was
we
the richest man in the world. But what does
Yes.
that mean?
Yeah, what does that look like in today's dollars? Like that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And so I looked it up, and the most recent statistic is taking what they expect his net worth to be as of 2023.
As though he was living in
Yes, as if
2023.
he was living in 2023. So this is not totally up to date. So it would be more now than this is saying. But his net worth as of 2023, if you transfer that amount, it would be $2.1 trillion.
That's trillion with a T.
Yes. Like I can't even fathom what that even looks like.
To give you some perspective, Elon Musk's net worth right now is 342 billion, which is still a lot, but it is not a trillion.
Yeah. So King Solomon was over 6 times wealthier than Elon Musk is right now.
A lot of people say, well, if I just made more money, I'd be more content. I could buy the things that make me happy. Do we think that King Solomon was pretty content with his life?
I don't think so.
Let's find out.
Yeah. In Ecclesiastes, this is chapter 2, verses 7 through 11. I think this just really gives a good picture of where he's at and his thought process. So he says, I also owned more herds and flocks than anyone in Jerusalem before me. I amassed silver and gold for myself and the treasure of kings and provinces. I acquired male and female singers and a harem as well. The delights of a man's heart, I became greater by far than anyone in Jerusalem before me. In all this, my wisdom stayed with me. I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. Can you imagine that? Like anything you wanted, you got.
He saw it, he took it.
I
He bought
refused
it.
my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all my labor, and this was the reward for all my toil. Yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless.
Mm.
A chasing after the wind, nothing was gained under the sun.
So you have this guy who has more money, more stuff, more girls than anyone else. He bought what he wanted. Anything he wanted, he bought.
Mm-hmm.
He liked his job. It says up here, my heart took delight in all my labor. So the stuff that he did, he enjoyed doing. But guess what? He was still dissatisfied. What does that say about having anything you ever want?
It really sheds a light to this fact that like we always are striving for more stuff, more power, more money, more, this, that, and like having a better life, a better career. But it's not actually going to satisfy us in the way that our soul really wants that satisfaction.
Yeah, it doesn't bring contentment like we think it should.
Yeah, it's not the antidote. And this is just a human condition. You can look back at Adam and Eve and they had everything. They were in like they were
This
with
perfect utopia.
yeah, in perfect communion with God. They had everything that they needed. It was beautiful, all the food that they could ever want. They had just life that was just perfect. And yet they were dissatisfied. Satan came in and just triggered them to recognize that, hey, I can't have everything. What about this tree of the knowledge of good and evil? This one thing that I can't have out of all the things I now don't want. I'm not satisfied with everything I have. I want this one thing that I can't have.
Yeah. A lot of times it's easy to be a spectator of a story and looking in and being like, I see the discontentment there. But a lot of times it's hard to see that connection with us today. And so what does discontentment look like today in these times? For our listeners, what might they be saying, thinking, going through that is actually discontentment presenting itself as something else?
Discontentment makes us want more stuff, and it could be a new home, new car,
A better job.
yeah, a better job, even like nicer clothes, desire for recognition and fame, especially with social media and things. We can see how many likes, how many numbers we have on things. We want people to see us and validate what we're doing.
Then even on social media and looking next door, you see the cars that people have, the houses that they live in, the vacations they go on, all of these different things. It makes it so much easier for us to be like, hey, I want that. But coveting somebody else's stuff, I mean, that's one of the 10 commandments, thou shalt not covet, right?
Yeah.
And being content with what you have, you can't do both. You can't be content with where you are and also covet what somebody else has. That's not to say you can't work hard to get to where you can have more, and it's not bad to amass some additional things, but having things in perspective and understanding that your contentment will not come from getting that vacation that your friend just went on. Your contentment will not come from getting that new house. Like once you get into that new house has more air filters. It's got more window blinds that you have to cover. It's just this continual trap of I've got to continually upgrade all of these things to get to a place where I can finally feel content with myself.
Yeah.
But that doesn't work.
And I think that one of the challenging things is looking at what other people have. We don't see the backstory. And as financial coaches, we get to see the backstory of so many people that look like they have it all together, but they're drowning in credit card debt or they're house poor, and they look the part, but they're struggling to be able to make ends meet. I think a lot of times we think that they have it all together, and we're the ones that are in a place where we just can't afford all the things that we want. But you don't know the inner life of the person that went on a vacation and they did that all on a credit card, and now they're going to be working to pay that off or just adding that to their debt payment and feeling like they're drowning. And that vacation may not have been as satisfying. Maybe they had a fight with their spouse while they were there, and you don't see that on social media. You only see the highlight reel.
All that said, the stuff that other people have, the experiences that they're experiencing, that's not going to bring contentment. I think of in the Bible, Paul. Like Paul had a lot of things happen to him, but he was one of the most content people in the Bible.
Yeah. In Philippians 4:11-13, he says this, and I think it's just so remarkable because if you know Paul, like as he was as Saul, and then look at all the things that he dealt with, he was shipwrecked, he was imprisoned, he did not have an easy life. And for him to be able to say this is just radical to me. So here he says this in verse 11, not that I am speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me.
Yeah, so that word content in the original language, philosophically in that time period, that would mean self-sufficient. So when he's first saying this, he would say that I am to be self-sufficient. And that's what some of the readers probably would have connected with. But then at the end, this is this verse that is quite often taken out of context, basically saying I can be Superman and fly around the world. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. This is coming right after a verse about contentment. And so he's making this connection that he is no longer self-sufficient when it comes to his contentment, to being okay with where he is at in life, being okay with being beaten, being okay with being shipwrecked, all of these things he's being okay with. He can't do that out of his own self-sufficiency, but it is a Christ-sufficiency. So it's not, I am self-sufficient. He connects that to now I am Christ-sufficient. And that's how I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
I just love that this really shines a light that it's not based on our circumstances. A lot of times we think that contentment is based on if we have a better job and have better health. If we had all the different things in our life, it's based on a circumstance. But the reality is that this is based off of Jesus. It's not based on our emotions. It's not based on life circumstances. Contentment is based on our attitude towards life. And that's something that we need to instill inside of ourselves. And like with our kids, we homeschool our kids. And one of the things that I've been having some conversations with our kids about is that they need to do their schoolwork no matter what. But if they have a positive attitude doing their schoolwork, they have contentment through it, they're going to enjoy it more. They're going to learn more than if they're just doing it with a bad attitude. And I think it's so easy for us in life to we can have a bad attitude about it or feel like this isn't that great, but we can change our attitude. Christ can help us with that process. And we need to ask him to help us on that journey, to give us the eyes to see where we're actually at from his eyes and perspective.
Yeah. And I think reading this verse again, verse 13, I can do all things through him who strengthens me. I think the reverse is also there. Like, I can't do things without Christ strengthening me. And that's why the world struggles so much with contentment, is they're trying to, on their very own self-sufficiency, be content with the things, but it's just not possible. And so that's telling us that contentment is not something we can master on our own. So how can we do this? Like, can we just muster up enough contentment inside of us? Can we self-sufficiently be Christ-sufficient? Where's the action item here?
Yeah, I think it's a process, that it's not like a one and done thing, that we need to have eyes to see what we need to be content about in our lives and why contentment is even important in the first place. Like, there are so many benefits for having contentment in our lives. Like, it helps us enjoy our life right now, not just someday. Like, we have always loved watching The Office. And, if you have not listened or watched The Office, hopefully I'm not spoiling it, but the last episode is all about Andy Bernard, and is this guy that he's not content through any of the seasons. And he's in it for 4 or 5 seasons or something like that. And he recognizes at the end of the show that he's like, those were the good old days. He was always looking for the future, not being satisfied with where he was. And then he realized that he was living in the good old days right then and there. And I think it's just an eye-opening word, because I think so often we think that the good old days are going to be sometime in the future, but we might be living in the good old days right now.
Oh, we are. I don't think there's a might be about it. I think I know we are living in the good old days, because every time you can look back, I think about college. There are times in college that I'm like, I can't wait till I'm done with college, studying for these finals. But some of the best memories I have are from that time period. You move back to high school, same thing. Oh, mom and dad didn't let me do such and such. But then you think, oh, it was great. I had all these memories. You have the good old days right here, right now. Next year, the good old days will be last year. And so be content with where you are. I think there's a Southern phrase that says, be where your feet are. And I think that's how you can be content in where you are. Accept where you're at, be there, and enjoy where you're living.
And I think that helps us to live the life that God has called us to live. Like, he's not calling us to go and like just for things in the future. Like, if we are not living in the present, in the now, and being content with our life and seeing what he has for us now, we're not able to be his hands and feet and do the things he's calling us to do. If we're saying like, someday when I have more money, then I can do it. Or when my kids are out of the house, or, whatever it could be. I think it's so easy for us to put these limitations that will be available when we don't have little kids, when we're done nursing, or when the kids go to school. Like, we set all of these expectations that then we'll be free to be able to do the things God's calling us to do. But he's asking us to do it right now.
How can a discontent heart worship God?
Mhm.
When you are discontent with where you're at, you're not able to truly thank God for the things you have. You can do lip service and say it, but it's not until we are content with where God has us right now that we can truly worship and thank him for all that he's provided for us. And you look at Paul, and even in times of trial and suffering, he was able to worship God because he was content with his circumstances,
Yeah.
content with his things, the stuff that he had.
This contentment helps us to not compare ourselves to others. Comparison is the thief of joy. And when we are doing that, we're looking at everyone else and not focusing on God or what he's calling us to do. It's like we can watch on TV everyone else live their own lives, but we're not actually living our own life.
Yeah. Yeah. And as a financial coach, I think if we could give one quality to our clients to make them successful, to help them to spend less and to save more, invest more in the future, I think contentment would be the number one thing that I would think about giving them. Because if you have contentment, you are naturally going to spend less money.
When you are content, you're able to have stronger boundaries of what you're going to say yes and no to. And that goes with spending money, but it also is what you're going to say yes to on your calendar and how busy you're going to be. If you're content, you're going to make room for space and rest and do things that you don't have to always be chasing the next big thing.
So back to the application. How do we apply this in our life?
We have to recognize the things that trigger us when we are discontent. I think that's the first thing that we need to do. Like, for us, we recognize that watching TV, watching Fixer Upper made us discontent. And I think it's really easy for us to just ignore those discontentment feelings and just keep living our life and actually acting upon those.
Yeah.
But recognizing those triggers and experimenting with how can we lower those triggers? Like, what can I actively do to make myself less discontent?
Yeah. And those of you who have been listening to the Steward Lab podcast for a while, you understand that the lab in Steward Lab is because we expect you guys, as you're listening, to experiment with what we talk about. We do experiments as well alongside of you. And so what we want you to do is consider, just like Amberlee said, what are some things in life that trigger discontentment? They could be your social media. They could be magazines, just being bored, being hungry, stressed.
Can be all kinds of things. And a lot of times it is based off of physical emotions or hunger. And, you hear all the time, like, don't go grocery shopping when you're hungry. You're going to make bad choices. And the same thing with discontentment. Pay attention to those emotions. That way you're not making big decisions when you are feeling those pains of discontentment.
Maybe you're daily getting emails in your inbox. Your phone's blowing up with emails on, hey, buy this, buy this, buy that. If you find that you're getting these emails, you're seeing these ads, you're on social media, and discontentment is seeping into your pores, then what can we do about that? And this is the experiment part. First of all, find out what that thing is that's causing you discontentment. And then second is, what can you actively do to reduce discontentment triggers? So what are some of the things? So once you find out let's say it's the emails. Let's say I'm constantly getting emails bombarded and I'm always wanting to buy more things or go have more experiences because I'm getting these emails. There's a really easy way to fix that one.
Yeah, you can unsubscribe. I've had some clients that the news was just making them discontent and worried and fearful when they got onto their computer every time. What was on their homepage was the news. One little shift of changing that to being something else, something that is enjoyable. It could be a Bible verse, making small shifts. I think a lot of times we think it needs to be something massive, but a lot of times it's just tiny tweaks that really help us to change our focus.
One thing that we did when we found that our phone was constantly determining how content we were is we bought a little device called Brick. I think it's Brick.app or something like that.
Yeah.
But essentially, you can set up your phone to have different settings. And so when you tap that brick, now everything that is a distraction is gone. And you can still use whatever apps that you decide you want to, like we have a Sabbath mode. On Sabbath, we'll tap that, and then we still can use maps. We can call people, we can text people, and that's about it. And then you have to actively physically go to that and tap it and allow it to let you back into those. In fact, let's say I try to open Instagram and start flipping through on Sabbath. It pops up with a black screen and says, "This is a distraction." And we put it away. So what are some of the things? First of all, what have you determined in your mind? I'm sure something has already come into your mind. What is that one thing that is causing discontentment? And what can you experiment with reducing the control it has in your life? And then do it.
It could be just going to the stores and shopping without having a plan. And one of the things that we recommend for some of our clients when they do that, if they just enjoy seeing different things, is going to a library where you can check out anything that you want and you can get it for free and you still get that same sensation without the need to spend money if that's what they're really working towards. And so I think just like, how can you shift things just a little bit? And another thing to think about too is counting your own blessings. Like, what are the good things that God has actually provided for you right now? We have a home that is warm and paid off, and it is not the largest on the block, and it doesn't have the best lawn. And I can go through and compare what we have to everyone else. But then I realized, like, how good we actually have it. We need to step back and recognize the good things that God has provided for us. And that really helps with that discontentment. And it could be a daily practice of talking to your spouse and saying, here are 3 things that I'm grateful for today. Or doing this at the meal that you have, dinner with your family, and each person shares something that they are grateful for. Those kind of practices will be so foundational in helping us change our lenses and see things from a perspective of God being our provider versus I need to have what other people have.
Last night, our son was praying and he said, "God, thank you that we're not slaves." And it's like, wow, that is some contentment right there. For those of you who have children, how can you enable your children to begin looking through life through the lens of, look at all that I have? Like, I am so content with what I have. What will that do for their future? Another thing that Amberlee has been doing, she wrote a little prayer that she's been reading out loud every morning. She gets down on her knees and prays it. It's the good steward prayer. She prays this out loud. I prayed alongside her. And this has been really helpful. This is the whole thing when we say that we cannot be self-sufficient in our contentment. We've got to be Christ-sufficient in our contentment. And so pray and ask God, help me. Help me be content with where I'm at, with what I have. Amberlee's going to read this. We do have this as a download if you want to start praying it. I recommend everybody on the podcast download this and pray it for 1 month straight. Every morning, get up and pray this. If you have a spouse, get up and pray it out loud together.
I'm going to pray. Lord, you are my provider. my daily bread. Help me to recognize your good gifts from above. Empower me to make choices that line up with your heart. Help me to be content with what you've given me. Guide my steps and decisions, for they impact more than just me. Give me wisdom and discipline to use your resources well, to build your kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. Forgive my shortcomings, my unbelief, and my selfishness. Let me steward all that you give me well for the benefit of others and future generations. Thank you for your continued faithfulness, for you are my provider, and I trust in you. Amen.
Amen. So if you want to get a copy of that prayer, go to stewardlab.com/prayer, or there's a link down in the show notes. Well, that does it for this episode. Thank you for joining us, and we will be meeting up with you next Tuesday, and it's a special episode.
We're going to be talking about marriage because it will be our 16th anniversary. So we're going to do an anniversary edition.
Yes, 16 years of Amberlee's bliss. All right, we'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks for being with us.